Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and today I want to talk about this whole controversy surrounding Bayonetta 3. We already did a discussion on this last Sunday, but a lot has come out since then that has changed the situation, that has changed my opinion of the situation, and it's a much bigger, different story now than what it was a couple days ago. So we're going to be talking about that today. Before we jump into things, let me mention my social media. It's all linked in the description below. You can check that all out. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe or perhaps consider joining as a member. So let me first summarize the initial part of the story here, and then we'll get into what my opinion was, the new information, and what my opinion has become. So initially, Helena Taylor, the original voice actress for Bayonetta, came out with 3 different videos on social media stating that she was only offered $4,000 as a flat rate to do Bayonetta 3, and that she found this offer to be insulting and immoral, and she reached out to the producer of Bayonetta, Hideki Kamiya, and he said he was very thankful for her efforts in the series, and then she later stated that she just received another offer of still the flat $4,000 rate. That's it, nothing else. And after that, very emotionally, she called for a boycott of the game, saying, "You don't have to not buy the game, but if you don't," she questioned your morality, what you care about as a person. And then she went on to wish nice things for Jennifer Hale, but also in a backhanded way, because also said that she's not Bayonetta and she doesn't have the right to sign off as Bayonetta on merchandising for Bayonetta 3. So the very strange, peculiar, emotional set of videos there. Once these videos were posted, they took the internet by storm. People started jumping to different conclusions. Kamiya had some statements on it on Twitter. He basically said that she was lying and it was not the truth and that it was sad, and went on a huge blocking spree, which is what he does on Twitter. He's a bit of an eccentric. And then his account was suspended for a day, it seems, or he deactivated it for a little while, but his account is now public again and people can see it and interact with it as they could beforehand. But people have been jumping to all sorts of conclusions, making accusations against Platinum, against Hideki Kamiya, and also Helena Taylor. There has been discussion and discourse on both sides. But where did I stand? Well, we had a discussion on Sunday, and we talked about all the different angles, and my stance was this. Helena Taylor definitely has the right to believe she deserves more money. But also, with the information that was given, we didn't really have a good full picture of the situation. Most of us don't even understand how much is a good rate and how much work was she going to be doing. What we were able to do, though, was surmise to some extent. Because we know from an interview that she had, she did 4 sessions for 4 hours on Bayonetta 1, which amounted to 16 hours of work. And looking at how long both Bayonetta 1 and 2 took, and how much footage there is in both games about the same amount of time, it probably isn't too much of a ridiculous estimate to think that there could also be about 16 to 20 hours worth of work for Bayonetta 3. So if she was getting paid $4,000 for that, you could interpret that to be about $200 to $250 depending on how many sessions there ends up being. Which, for someone who doesn't know how voice acting works, getting paid $200 to $250 per hour is a really, really good rate. Most people don't get that kind of money. Of course, you also have to take into consideration that voice acting is a little bit different. It's not your typical kind of job. It's not something that you just have lined up hour to hour every day, Monday through Friday, where you're working 40 hours a week. It's definitely different in that way. And then, of course, you have these bigger companies using the voices of these people in their games or what have you forevermore. So there's definitely things going on there. And personally, I did a little bit more research on this, and I learned that there was definitely discussions and debates on getting there to be some sort of residuals or royalties for voice actors, but ultimately that has not been the case, and there's just been a focus on hourly rates, it seems. But it created more discussion on how voice actors should be paid, and I thought that was great. But still, given what Helena had told us, it wasn't enough information for me to make a full-on committal decision on what was going down here. But ultimately, she never agreed to do the work, right? So she was offered something, she didn't think it was fair, she stepped away. She perhaps deserves more, and there's definitely some questionings to that. But she was calling for a boycott of a game that's been in development for years, over 5 years, that's involving so many other people that have been working on it for over half a decade. Is it really fair that because one person didn't get the money they were looking for and decided not to do the work, that everyone else that's been working on this project for years shouldn't have their game seen and played by the world? So ultimately, my opinion was the game should not be boycotted, even though I also felt that maybe something should be done for Helena Taylor to make up for whatever transpired or fell through during the negotiations. Well, now things look a little different. Because Bloomberg has come over the report and Jason Schreier has wrote this report and apparently has a number of sources here supporting the claims. Platinum offered Helena Taylor between $3,000 and $4,000 per session for at least 5 sessions, according to 2 familiar people with the deal and documentation viewed by Bloomberg. In response, the people said Taylor asked for a 6-figure fee and residuals. Negotiations fell apart. Taylor denies this account. In an email to Bloomberg, she called that version of events an absolute lie and said that Platinum is trying to save their ass and the game. Apparently also Helena said that she just wants to move on from Bayonetta 3 as a whole and just focus on theater acting. All of this is incredibly interesting. One, because when you take a look at the IMDb's for Helena Taylor and Jennifer Hale, the actress who's now playing as Bayonetta, Helena doesn't have any work showing up since 2014, since Bayonetta 2 and Smash Brothers. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hale has been working in the industry consistently over all these years. So that's already a bit of a red flag to me. Like, what's going on? There's something unusual about that. Of course, maybe she just doesn't like doing big voice acted roles, but she was willing to come back for Bayonetta 3, and it's that simple. She did talk about in her videos how she's been struggling financially and even brought into question her own mental health and being healthy. Like, those are important things, and she definitely deserves to be treated well. She's a great actress for a great game. You know, she does deserve above average numbers, I would say. Like, absolutely. But based on what we're being told here from Jason Schreier, and there's sources to back it up, she was offered something that was above average, significantly more than what she suggested in her video. Now, something else that's interesting though is that apparently Platinum, after negotiations fell through and went ahead and hired someone else, still wanted Helena Taylor to come back as a cameo, and they were willing to offer her a flat rate fee. My personal interpretation of all of this is that everything that Bloomberg is saying is true because they have sources to back it up and documentation, but also it kind of fits what Helena Taylor said. Just the way she said it was misleading. She said at the end they offered her a $4,000 flat rate fee. So it seems like after negotiations fell through and they weren't willing to give her residuals and over $100,000, they went with someone else that they could afford, who's also still really good, Jennifer Hale. But because they cared about her work and what she means to this series, they still wanted her to be involved, so they offered her $4,000 for one single session, and she didn't do it. That's my interpretation of what's been seen here. I know there's going to be debate here. Some people are going to say that Bloomberg is lying or that Platinum Games put out that report and they just falsified it. Is that possible? Anything is possible, but Bloomberg is a reputable news reporting site and they have multiple sources here. And when you take a look at the videos, when you think about how emotional she was, when you think about how she attacked Jennifer Hale, and how I would say she unfairly called for a boycott of a game that she didn't work on, she chose not to work on it, deals fell through. It may have been immoral, whatever they offered. That's up for debate, that's subjective. But to then suggest that everyone else involved should have their game boycotted, that's unfair. So my opinion is that Helena Taylor doesn't look so good right now. She broke NDA to put out all those videos. And even though she was willing to break NDA, she's not willing to put out any sort of hard evidence to support her claims or counter the claims from Bloomberg that would support Platinum Games. So at this point, I'm going to trust the reputable news site that has sources, that is supporting a company that hasn't really given me any legitimate red flags. just what we've heard from Helena Taylor, hearsay. So it's possible that even more information will come out after the fact here, and maybe our perspective will continue to evolve here. But now my opinion is, it would be wrong to boycott this game because there isn't any evidence to support that what Platinum Games has done is wrong, and in fact they made efforts to try and make things right. And Helena Taylor just felt she was way more deserving than what they offered, and maybe that's the case, that's up to her, but what they offered is above average. And even if it's still immoral to some of you, is it fair to boycott a game that's been being worked on by so many other people? I don't think so. That all said, I don't think you should be worried about how the game is going to perform. I think you should decide to get the game if you want the game. We've already seen a lot of signs that the game is actually going to perform better now because of all of this conversation and talk. Guess what? Bayonetta 3 has gone up in pre-orders on Amazon and such. So Platinum Games, Bayonetta 3, it looks like things are going to go over really well for them. My main concern at this point is just to tell the truth and have this conversation so there can be more awareness for actual voice actors that are underpaid. And I also pray and hope that Helena Taylor finds herself in a good position, because at this point, after breaking NDA, after now seeming like she's been lying about circumstances or misleading people and calling for a boycott and attacking someone who's pretty prominent and respected in the industry, Jennifer Hill, it doesn't look good for her. But hopefully things can work out, hopefully things can be done more amicably. Maybe they can still somehow fit in some sort of representation for Helena Taylor. Maybe they can come to terms in some way. Maybe. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.